Morgan, Morgan. Happy Friday, buddy.
Good morning, Nicholas. Happy Friday. Hello, everyone who's joining. It is a good Friday. Well, it's not Good Friday. That's coming up soon enough, but it's a good one. And it's a little Catholic joke for this morning, I guess.
I guess.
I guess.
Didn't know
Hi,
we were on
everyone.
that corner of LinkedIn.
Yeah. Well, if you're here, drop a hi in chat. We'd love to say hello to you. I'm so thrilled for today's topic, Nick. I think you've selected a banger. We're going to have a blast prospecting on LinkedIn from A to, as we would say in the United States, Z, but apparently A to Z since you're leaving or leading today's conversation.
You guys got your funny degrees. You got a World Series that you only participate in. Like, there's some funny things that go up with those marks.
Yeah, we're not gonna mention too much. But hello, everyone. Honestly, yeah, if you're here, just drop a hi in chat. And I think, shall I kick off a little bit as we dive in?
Yeah, and maybe we'll just touch on, guys, this is your show.
Mm-hmm.
If there's something that you really want to know, put it in the chat. Put all your questions. We may not address it right away, but we will come back. So please go and put it in there, and then we'll actually read through it because this does go in our podcast as an audio only format.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll actually read it out so other people can get the answer as well and know the question. So
Yep.
anytime you're ready,
All right. So
let the questions roll.
in case you're new around here, we're doing these every Friday. And last week we did a big deep dive on the profile, a LinkedIn profile, and we will touch upon some of those topics again today. But what you and I have been talking about all week is how do you prospect well on LinkedIn? What's both the groundwork you need to do? How much effort in advance? What are some of the tactics, the topics, the engagement strategies? How do you go out and actually connect with somebody? Should you use InMail? Should you pitch slap? I mean, all of these sorts of, you shouldn't pitch slap, but all of these sorts of questions that we're going to explore today. I figured, Nick, to sort of tee it up, the way as you all know, I'm not a sales professional by trade. So in prospecting work, the sense that I get is so much of the work. There's a lot of legwork to do before you actually go reach out to somebody.
Mm-hmm.
And what I wanted to know from you was like, how how long should that take? What does it look like? What do you need to know? And what does that groundwork, foundational work look like?
I think we should probably call this the prerequisites.
Okay,
The
yeah.
prerequisite to doing this well. And so,
Mm-hmm.
guys, if you know anybody that's struggling with this, or you're having these conversations in DMs right now with your friends, tag them. Thanks, Jeffrey, for already starting that. Tag them so that they can join in, and then they can even watch the recording later. But there
Yep.
are prerequisites to prospecting. And this is where so many salespeople go wrong, and companies lead them astray because it really comes down to customer knowledge and insights.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where it's really difficult talking to C-suite or senior leadership when you don't know what matters to them, where you've never stepped in their shoes, you've never seen your product see value. And so we need to actually go deep enough into our prerequisites to do good work. And so we're only going to go over this very quickly. This will actually be next week's topic, but prerequisites, you got to know your ICP.
Mm-hmm.
Why them? Do you have at least 5 or 10 distinguishing factors that make them a really good fit? So if you put 100 companies out in front of you, you could actually pick all the ones because of what they look like externally, what you can find on a website.
Say yes or no, basically. Yeah, your ability to differentiate and say no. Mm-hmm. That's
If you
huge.
can't say no to an account that gets, if somebody put 100 accounts in front of you and you can't say no, this prospecting workshop we're about to do is going to be very difficult for you because people are going to push you aside because they don't feel like you're valuable. You need to know what personas that you're targeting. Who's in that buying community? Who's getting that call in the middle of the night when things go wrong? You got to think about this. They're the best person to talk to. And who are the victims of things as they are? Who feels that friction on a daily or weekly basis? They love to talk about it. We all need someone to vent to.
Hmm.
But when we know that somebody understands where we're coming from, it feels good to get that out. And then you have a champion.
That's so good because what just came to mind was a topic from like 2 weeks ago on one of these live shows, was that people don't wake up in the middle of the night thinking about what software they need to purchase. They wake up in the morning and they're like, oh God, I have to suffer through another day of this, right? And so what you're pointing to is these victim personas, these people at companies that suffer from a result that they don't have your product. The approach, and we'll get to this, but understanding those personas doesn't have anything to do with your product or solution. It's understanding the problem that they're experiencing, their worldview on the day to day. What does it feel like to not have your product or solution in their world? What does that look like? Is it they do a bunch of custom work that they could do automatically elsewhere? Is it they struggle with cash flow? Is it their boss is breathing down their neck to hit quota and you have something to sort of support? Understanding that problem, man, that's just huge. Huge.
And this is where so many people go wrong again, because when they do personalization, what do they personalize to?
Yeah, of
First
course.
name, last name, company.
Hmm.
But everybody misses the first part. What is the company-wide problem that you're solving? And what
Hmm.
is the problem to that role? What is that
Hmm.
friction? How does it show? Not don't label the problem. What are the symptoms? And what do those symptoms tell you? The
Hmm.
better you get at this, it's like a doctor doing a diagnosis. I will say
Hmm.
you shouldn't be doing all your diagnosis for free, but that's a conversation for
Yeah.
another time.
Yeah.
But this is the prerequisite, because if you can't say no,
Mhm.
then you can't prospect, because you can't qualify. And this is what leads to so many dry runs, or you send in mails, or you send personalized invitations and they go nowhere, or
Mhm.
people don't want to meet with you and they just ghost you.
Mhm.
It's because of value. Everybody is exchanging time for value,
Mhm.
money for value. If you nobody wants to book a 30-minute meeting with you for prospecting, it's because they don't see enough value to give you that time. And it all starts with the prerequisites of knowing your customer. Step inside their shoes, do your customer research, be ready, because that knowledge is what leads us into what we're going to get into next.
Mhm.
And Morgan, you did a great job in this last week. Want a quick summary on how to set up your file? Because believe it or not, whether you
Mhm.
send them an email,
Yeah.
cold call, direct mail, if they
Yep.
don't know you or they don't recognize the brand, what do,
Mhm.
Morgan?
They ignore you. They just
Or they
they're
go and look at your LinkedIn profile,
or they go well,
or they'll
yeah,
Google
sorry.
you,
I
right?
yeah. So so this is a really interesting way to tee it up, because what Nick just pointed to for everyone who's here today is that you have to do all this legwork. But when it comes to prospecting out on LinkedIn, you have the foundation. You know who you need to talk to. You know generally the personas, the roles, the problems they're experiencing, what value you can provide. The mistake that we make is that we think a good personalized message is enough. So we think, and this is fine. This is a mistake. This is actually something you and I have learned through trial and error, that a personalized message is enough. That if we just crafted the equivalent of a banger cold email out here on LinkedIn, that we're going to get 90% connection acceptance rates, and we are going to get all the attention in the world. And it's just not true. And the reason it's not true is because we've run these
Surprisingly.
experiments, right? We've Both Nick and I have done cold outbound outreach on this platform, testing the different elements that go into this. And the crucial foundational first step is you have to have a good profile. And the reason you have to have a good profile is somebody shows up, and just put yourself in your prospect shoes. Somebody shows up in your little network tab with a personalized request, but they have a really weird image and their headline doesn't make a lot of sense. And so you click and you look at the page and you're like, huh, well, maybe, I guess I'll connect with them. And then lo and behold, you know what happens? They get pitch slapped. So then the next time, and that, immediate pitch, right? The next time somebody comes into their inbox, maybe it's you this time, and your profile photo isn't that great and your headline doesn't make a lot of sense, and then they're either just going to ignore it or they'll look at your profile again and the little ding 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 will go off and they'll say no, it's not worth it, and they'll just ignore it. So it's not necessarily about you, it's about the competitive landscape that we operate in out on LinkedIn.
Mhm.
Now, we did a full hour deep dive into how to build a profile, which you can find on the podcast at b2bpowerhour.com. And there's going to be a lot more detail than what we're going to do today, because we have the good meaty stuff about how to actually do prospect to get to. But I'll say this: you have to pass the 3-second test, which is if
Yes.
somebody hits your profile in the first 3 seconds, they're going to look at your profile photo, your banner, your headline, your connection request, and your place of work. That's just what the brain processes. Does it all match up? Does it all make sense? And the goal of that is not just to build trust. It's not just to like validate that you're a good, real, honest person. It's also to get them to scroll. So you don't want a banner image that's just galaxy photos, okay? You don't want just a banner image that's like a pretty version of a city. And the reason I know this is because I've had that. I've had the photo of the cityscape. I've had the photos of the mountains. Do you know how successful I was? Not that successful. When we switched up our banner
Below
images,
30%. Just so you guys
yeah,
know, like the actual numbers,
yep,
it was
below
below
30%.
30% connection requests, regardless of how we went, how we phased the or phrased the personalized invitation. Less
Yep,
than 30%.
less than 30%. We changed up our banner. We made sure our profile photo was professional, face on, smiling. We made sure our headline, and we don't have the time to really get into this today, sorry, Nick, is more value focused. It's about what you do. It's not tied to ROI. It's not tied to impact. It's not tied to a pitch. It's not a pitch slap. It's not a shadow pitch. It has nothing to do with
What's
salesy
your category?
language. Yeah, what's your category? What do you do? Just say it plainly, right? I help B2B sales teams master social selling. That's all I do, right? Nick, let's talk future of sales. That's what he likes to do.
Let's talk
That
about
is
strategic marketing.
right. The whole empowering global teams to accelerate revenue in their organizations. That's a pitch in your
Our
headline.
holistic approach
And you know what
to
happens when you switch from a pitch headline to a value headline? My connection
conversations.
requests doubled. Acceptance request rates doubled. They jumped from like, I don't know, 25 to 55% or something like that.
Yeah, it
And
was
you also saw that
instantly,
similarly. It was like
instantly when we changed it. And
instantly.
it didn't matter with personalized invitations or blank.
Mhm.
It instantly went up. And then
So, w-
I was gonna say just and smile
yeah,
in your profile picture. I noticed that too
smile.
because I used to have a different picture in my
You were very
profile,
serious. Yeah.
and it made a huge difference. So
Huge
I
difference.
was wrong.
Yeah. Hey, we learned, we want to share this stuff with everybody. The other thing that comes to mind in the last note on your profile, the reason all of this is important is that when you get to a content strategy, when you get to an engagement strategy, meaning you're posting stuff, you're commenting, you're working with prospects, you're doing the actual prospecting work, everything is going to come back to your profile. Because
Hmm.
and you can track this. You have that little data of how many profile views you get, right? And I think it's like 90 days. You can see who's viewing your profile. And if their privacy settings isn't just anonymized, you can generally see names and titles and companies. And so you can start to piece together, is this working? Am what I doing, is it working? Because you might have, 800 profile views in 90 days and you've gotten no attention at all. And then you look at your profile and you're like, well, my banner image doesn't say much. My headline's kind of salesy. My about section doesn't say anything at all. My work experience isn't there. Like, work on that. Just, get your profile together. It's a landing page for the network and it's your foundation for how to do it right. So if you want
Hmm.
field notes on, we have for anybody who's here, I just realized tomorrow's issue of Field Notes, which is our little notes thing we send out
Experiments.
on Saturday, is about all of our experiments we run. It's actually about the profile. So if you want that, you can go to b2bpowerhour.com and sign up for it. But we have a full podcast episode detailing how to build a better LinkedIn profile. That was from last week. So enough about the profile, Nick. Let's move on to content.
Let's get it going. Content strategy is another thing just worth touching on because when
Hmm.
people go back to your profile, they want to see what you're talking about. And what happens a lot of the time, and this happened early in my career because I was always put behind, I don't want to call it like a mask, or I was always a support role. I would
Oh
start
yeah.
stuff.
Mhm.
as like an SDR or BDR role, but then I would always hand it off to a managing partner to go and close, or like there was always a handoff. But
Mhm.
because they were the ones that were instilling value, people thought I didn't know anything because I never had a platform to share my knowledge. What happens when you start posting consistently? And I'm talking once a week, 2 to 3 times a week. It does not have to be every day. They look to see if you're active on social media. They'll Google your name. LinkedIn, unless you have something else that you've been investing into SEO, LinkedIn is number one or number two every time you go into LinkedIn and they look at your profile. Does it line up with what they expect? And are you active? And
Mhm.
then if you're active, whatever you reached out about, are you a credible source of information? Is what they want to know.
Mhm.
Why you? Why now? Why do I care?
And the only asterisk on this, because I know we need to get to the engagement side, is that commenting is content creation. So comment. And don't just, I'll say this, the comments that you maybe should not do are thanks for posting this. Wow, so insightful. And it's not a helpful comment. You can do valuable comments if you have something to add. But honestly, if you're starting out or you don't know what to say, ask a question. That is the easiest thing to do. Pop into somebody's comments and just ask a question and get a conversation going, because that is going to show up in your activity feed when somebody sees your profile. It is your
And they
content.
and that other person's as well, especially if they like it. And this is
Exactly.
actually where I want to start with engagement
Yes.
because it's the most underutilized strategy around.
Sorry for jumping the gun here, Nick.
No, thank you for leading us into a big one because content is just it's not filler, it's credibility and trust at scale. This is what brings people to you. But in order to have people come to you, you need to first go to them and build a big enough audience. That's how you get the 3 C's of LinkedIn:
Mhm.
content, connections, and what's number 3?
Comments?
Good job, Morgan.
Thank
You've
you.
been paying attention. But you gotta go and do those 3, and this is where it brings it all together. Well, comments, most people, when they think of prospecting on LinkedIn, and this is I've been talking to a lot of people about this, like, how would you prospect on LinkedIn? How do you go about it? How do you build it out? Well, the first thing you need to do, just to go kind of take one step back, you did your ICP, you build out your personas, you need a sales intelligence tool.
Mhm.
Sales Nav is pretty good. The
Mhm.
price isn't bad compared to some of the alternatives. So build out
Yeah.
your accounts, build out your lead lists. Your accounts are that ICP. The reason you want to do enough of these, but keep it very segmented, is because LinkedIn will give you updates. If they start hiring, if they go through a funding round, if somebody gets promoted, these are really critical times that you can reach out, but you need to know your market well enough to know if those are a buying trigger or if it's going to get the flood of SDRs hitting them up. People will
Mhm.
actually not put a promotion on their LinkedIn profile to when they become an executive for sometimes 3 to 6 months so that they can get to work. So you got to find those right triggers and those right symptoms to reach out. Then you
Mhm.
got to go and figure out those personas and you got to break them down because those personas, don't think of the title, think of their role. What
Mm.
do they actually do? Like their roles and responsibilities. This is a great time, especially if you've never done it before. Go and read through their job summary. What are they responsible for? And this helps you figure out how to route into the account. What is that low hanging fruit? Who's getting that call in the middle of the night? Who's the victim? And build out, you'll want somewhere between 3 to 5. You don't necessarily want more. Always start with 1 or 2 and keep out. The simpler you make this, the better. So pick one segment. That's it. Pick
What, and
one
that's
persona or
one
2.
persona. Yeah, across all the different accounts. It's like one role basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And just stick to that for 30 days.
Hmm.
And if you're successful, you're getting meetings, the messaging that you've done is resonating, move on to 2. You have to stack. And this is our job as leaders, is to go and be the guides of that stacking and making sure that it's lining up, because if it's lining up, we didn't build the foundation and we're forcing the SDRs to do the hard work that we should have done. And so, and they don't have access to do a win-loss analysis. So they're at a huge disadvantage when it comes to prospecting.
Right.
But once you've got your account list and got your lead list, what happens if you go to the homepage on SalesNav, it actually will sort by people posting. So
Mm-hmm.
one of the most important things on lead lists that you want to sort by is actually, it's called a spotlight, and it's posted in the last 30 days,
Mm-hmm.
because not everyone's on LinkedIn, but there's always someone in that company that is on LinkedIn. It does not matter what industry you're in. Sales and marketing are usually always on LinkedIn.
Absolutely.
Engineers are on LinkedIn. They don't use it necessarily every day, depending on their role.
Mm-hmm.
And so it also comes down to your timing,
Mm-hmm.
right? What we found is with this process is the first 14 days are really good to do on LinkedIn. After that, switch to something else if you're
And
not getting traction.
and that's the first 14 days from first outreach. So or first contact. It's like we're talking with aliens here. We have first
Kind of. You
contact
kind of
with
are
our
an alien swooping in on their life.
yeah. So, and what you're pointing to, so let's talk about this first contact actually, because so you've identified your account list and your lead list, and maybe you have sales now, maybe you don't, but you know basically who you need to go after. Should you send them a DM saying, "Hey, let's get on a call together"?
No.
I
You
knew
got
the
to
answer
think,
to that. That was a
yeah,
softball. I'm sorry, but
yeah.
like,
You got to slow your roll.
yeah.
The reason why LinkedIn doesn't work for a lot of sales teams is because their hunger comes out.
Mm,
And so it comes off kind of desperate, or it doesn't get to the value, so they don't see the value. And so because LinkedIn is more like networking, social networking,
hmm
you got to slow down to speed up. And so this is actually where commenting comes in. One of the
hmm
fastest ways to book meetings is through comments, not through DMs. And so
Yeah.
what you do is you sort by leads on SalesNav, or you just go into those accounts, go scroll down just a little bit. It'll say activity, and then there's see all activity. Click there, comment. Maybe don't be
Mhm.
creepy and comment on like 50 of them at once,
Probably,
but
probably for the best not to do that. Yeah.
the goal of doing this is 3 interactions back and forth. The rule of 3.
hmm
Until you get 3, hold off on sending that connection request. Hold off
hmm
for asking for anything.
And honestly, in our experience, 50% of the time, they send you a connection request after 3 interactions. That's
And
why you hold off.
it's actually higher now that we've upgraded our profiles.
And exactly, it's true. It's maybe 3/4 of the time. But truly, so let's just take quick little proof in the pudding section here. There was a new account that I wanted to engage with. I bookmarked their little posts section because I knew they were active. And so every morning, whenever they posted, or every other morning, I'd just throw in a comment. I'd ask a question, I'd add a valuable comment or something like that to whatever they had posted. I liked it, I posted, and got a little conversation going. I did that 3 times, and then they reached out to me and said, "It seems like we have a lot in common. We should definitely connect." And so I said, "Great, let's connect." You know what happened? Then there's a conversation that happens in the DMs, and they prompted it because we slowed down so we could speed up.
And so what works really well, and I think this is Justin Welsh that originally said this, is you actually put the time that they normally post.
Yeah.
And so this is really good because this even works even better with influencers that your market trusts.
hmm
So find only 3 to 5, and
Not
then
many.
and you can actually reach out to them and ask, "What time do you normally post in a day?"
hmm
And they'll tell you because they understand.
yeah.
They understand the assignment. Just and then when you go into your bookmark, write the time.
hmm
Try to put it in order if you can. Put it in order. Write their name so you can just click.
hmm
Okay, so and so posts at 7 a.m. Some posts at 9, and you go through. And what actually where people do this wrong is they just comment on the post.
This
This
is
is
such a good
where
hack. Listen to this. This is such a good hack, Nick. You taught me this.
it's almost yeah. I don't know how we didn't test this out sooner, but
I know, but the results, man. Whew.
and you even see it in your profile views right away too. You're
Oh,
like,
it's
what the hell did we
insane.
do
It's
differently? What
insane.
happened? So
Anyways,
what we used to do is we would just comment. and we show
Mhm.
up consistently and comment. We built a relationship with these influencers, which we brought on our show thanks to it. But we
Mhm.
just keep commenting consistently and building that. Well, one day I decided to go through the comments and look for good conversation starters that I could go a level deeper to add more value or ask a good
Mhm.
question, or even just say that's a great question. I've always looked at it from this angle, and like you're starting a thread. Well,
Mhm.
the thing is, by showing up consistently, you get trust through association. So social psychology is in your favor.
Mhm.
You know they're conversational because they've reached out because there's something important, and you're continuing that conversation. So would you rather go out and focus on the 80% that provides you 20% of the results, or flip it? This is
Mhm.
why we start with comments. The first place to focus is on the influencers. The second place is on your lead list you built.
Mhm. Yep. Well,
And
and
keep
you can narrow even the kinds of comments you're doing on influencers to start threads to just ICPs, because
Mhm.
the hope is you're not just pulling, let's say you're not just pulling Gary Vaynerchuk, okay? You're not just pulling the big influencers. You're finding the 3 to 5 accounts that maybe have 30 to 100,000 followers, right? And you are finding those profiles that your target accounts follow and engage with.
Yeah.
So, in their comments, your target accounts are also there. And so you can find who should I start a conversation with? And it's just brilliant, Nick. The kinds of profile traffic, the kinds of conversations that get started off of that is, talk about a lever. It is a huge
And
leverage point.
what you need to look for. This is super, super, super critical. And Lydia, this will tie into your question about are you doing that in the comments or in the DMs? Super, super critical is every single social selling or social influencer
Mhm.
that's worth their weight has a community in the comments. If there is no dialogue in the comments, if there is no regular people showing, if there is no dynamic discussions, you're in the wrong place. Move on.
Yeah.
Look for those influencers. And I find sometimes it's kind of between that like 5,000 to a max of 30. I find that it's actually lower is better. Somewhere between the 5 and 10 because they're more dynamic and they're actually in the community more often.
Mhm.
That's who you want to go and focus on. If you look and they're never commenting themselves, if you look and there is no commenting or no like continued conversation, get out. You're wasting your
Yeah.
time.
It's not worth it. This is not a leverage point, right? This is not worth your time. The can I talk just really quick about the comment experiment, since this is such a crucial part of the engagement strategy?
Yeah.
So one thing that we hear a lot reasonably, which is like, okay, that's great. You get in front of your personas, but like what sorts of results do you get? Now, I don't really care about profile views as like a goal metric. Like I don't try and optimize to get a bunch of people to my profile, but it's sort of a useful like shorthand for, eh, is it working, right? And especially because you can see who's viewing your profile, you get a sense of what kinds of accounts are engaging and wanting to see more from me. And so that's very helpful to understand what sort of visibility I have. So over the course of a couple months, I did this experiment, which I stopped posting and commenting. And so profile views went down, down, down,
Oh,
down, down,
this
down.
one.
And then I did both posting and commenting. They went up, 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 up. And then I kept on posting daily because we post daily, but I stopped really commenting. It was like I threw in a comment here or there, but I'd like mostly. I just didn't comment much, and it went down, down. Not as steep as without posting, but it continued to go down.
Trickle
And then I restarted commenting, and it went what? Right back up. And
every time.
that is so like, yeah, profile views are not the goal, the end all be all, but it's a useful guesstimate as to what direction am I trending in. Am I trending in the process of like finding the right people to follow me, the right people to engage with me, or am I not? And that's so important. This is why, and all of this, Nick, I just want to hammer this home. All of this happens without a connection request, without a DM, without an in-mail. This
Mhm.
is free playground, folks. You get to go comment on anybody who's active and start up a
No
conversation.
limitations.
No limitations. There's no need to, right? As
Mhm.
long as you make it a valuable conversation or you ask good questions.
And this is all free. You don't need Sales Navigator to do this. This is why I love this strategy is because
Hmm.
you can go and start building pipeline for free. And then the other thing to watch for to know that you're doing a good job and that your profile is tweaked well is they always look at your profile before they connect, usually.
Yeah.
Unless you got your tagline dialed in really well, or you're delivering so much value and being so human. They feel like
Human.
you're a real person, you're not scripted, then they'll connect with you. And you watch when you're commenting, how often are you getting connection requests and by who?
Right. And the social psychology that drives this is, oh, somebody's paying attention to me. We all like to have attention given to us, even a little bit. And that me, Nick's like, what? No, 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 no. But truly, that is what encourages inbound connection requests. Now, after the rule of three, I saw a comment, and I apologize on our end. Your privacy settings don't let us see your name, but the said like first follow, then engage and comment on posts of the prospect before I send the connection request. Then it seems more natural to send the connection request. So yes,
Amen.
directionally, amen, absolutely. I would definitely comment a few times instead of just once. And some of that is the time. It's sort of like it's building trust. It's sort of like going on a first date. If you go on a first date and somebody ramps it up really quickly, you're like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Slow the roll here. Okay. But if you follow and engage and comment for a couple times, and then you send a connection request, especially with a personalized invite to start a conversation after they accept, then yeah, sure. That's exactly the direction we've been talking through.
Can I throw a caveat to this?
Oh, absolutely.
Depends on where the power line is.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
what I've
Mm-hmm.
noticed is with either people that are influencers, have a bigger following, or have a bigger profile, or their C-suite senior leadership, they're getting hit every single day with asks. Selfish or valuable, doesn't matter. To stand out, think of when if you were getting 100 plus connection requests a day, or even 10, versus a couple comments. What do you think stands out more? But what if never ask anything and you just consistently show up?
Mm-hmm.
You're the one asking the good questions. You're the one that's bringing value. You're the one that's nurturing the community in the comments. You're there being a team player.
Mm-hmm.
That is why people reach out, because you're being so generous. And
Yes.
when you're in a senior leadership role, that's hard to find. It's very uncommon. The whole point of sales is to do the unconventional, uncommon things so you stand out. And if you look, social psychology hasn't really changed over the years. Our brains are still the same. So this stuff works because
Mm-hmm.
it stands out in our brains. It's also a safety mechanism. This person's not going to hurt me.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so the higher up they are in the food chain, the better this works. And it also, the longer you should do it. I noticed that when I do comments with somebody that has like 5,000 connections or less, or followers, it usually
500.
doesn't, or 5,000 or less.
Oh, 5,000 followers. Sorry. Yeah, 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 yeah.
It doesn't it doesn't take long, and they're usually happy with a nice, simple, personalized invite saying, "Hey, like observation." Will Allred put this really nicely today. Observation question,
Mm-hmm.
because then
I
if you
saw
do an
that.
observation,
Yep. I
it's
saw
something you
that.
see. It's
Mm-hmm.
proof.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I saw your post on so this and this. What are
Right.
your thoughts on this? Hey, I
Mm-hmm.
saw that you wrote that article on Forbes. It seemed like you didn't dive so much into this. What are your thoughts on this? Or
Mm-hmm.
but continue the conversation. This is where people go wrong with personalized invitations. And this is why most of the time they don't make a difference.
Right.
It's because people don't continue a conversation, they make an ask. So I'm going to go in. Anybody that's been here a few times knows what I'm going to say. I believe in vampire sales.
Yeah.
Vampire sales, vampires by, folklore, were not allowed in your house unless you invited them. Do not pitch unless you're asked.
Yep.
Be a person. Focus
Be a
on the
person.
company. You can talk about that stuff without pitching,
Mm-hmm.
but it becomes a pitch when it's about when you bring you and the company in versus talking about what's in it for them.
Mm-hmm.
When you focus, have you ever been at a networking event and you're sharing and you're being like you're having fun and the person feels good because they've been talking for the past 40 minutes and they're like, you know so much about me, Morgan. What do you do?
Yeah.
This is what happens because I always screw up this word and you're gonna laugh at me.
Okay.
Reciprocity. God damn it!
Reciprocity.
Yes, go team.
Go
I don't know
team.
why that word
Yeah,
always gets me.
reciprocity. Yep.
People want to give back to people that have given to them, and it kind of even comes
Mhm.
from Gary Vee wrote the book was like jab jab hook.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah,
You got to give more than you ask, and this is why
always.
LinkedIn fails too because it's a social network.
Hmm.
Email is task management. Texting is communication. You got to look at the primary use of the channel that you're using and match their expectations, or you will fail because it fails to meet their expectations. And when you trigger that red flag, they ignore it. So, this is
Hmm.
why comments work really well. This is why using some type of observation to show you did the work. And this, when you're going and reaching out to companies now and you're working an account list, that
Hmm.
observation has to be about the company first.
Hmm.
Because if you don't make it about the company, it's hard to build a business case. Or
Hmm.
what happens too is it drags on for a really long time.
Yeah.
And so
Yep.
you may have been talking to somebody for 3 to 6 months, but you've never actually had a meaningful conversation about the business case to work together because maybe you're assuming they're going to ask.
Hmm.
But when you're talking to these senior leaders, a lot of time their time is very precious. They're booked back to back. And so they actually appreciate when you start with that observation and a question because it shows you've done the homework and you're not going to waste their time asking them,
Hmm.
"So, Mr. Smith, what keeps you up in the middle of the night? What are your
It's
biggest
just
priorities this quarter?"
it's just not it just doesn't sound human. Like that's the thing. It just doesn't sound
But
like a real
also
person.
but also shows you didn't do your homework.
Right.
Because if you look at a website, nobody walks up to you and says, you got your collection looks normal, everything looks normal, but I think you have the flu."
Right.
Oh, you got a runny nose, you're coughing, you have an upset stomach. You ever think that maybe you have the flu?
Hmm.
There's signs and symptoms like a cold that tell you that somebody needs you. There's some response. But to go and
Can
walk out and just point out the problem
Yeah,
is tough.
it's so super tough. Can I talk about a quick faux pas on running connection requests? Because this just happened to me last week.
Okay, fire away, buddy.
This is definitely a personal thing, but I also don't think it's good practice, anyways. So I gotten a connection request from a sales professional that says, "Hi Morgan, I saw you liked an interesting LinkedIn post that came across my feed. Let's connect."
This might have been the same person that said that to me too.
And I just what strikes me about that kind of connection is that it's clear this sales professional has taken no genuine interest. Now, here's the thing. I'm always up for an experiment, and I also want to see what other people do on this platform so we can run our experiments effectively. So I accepted it. I said, "Sure, thanks to connect." Lo and behold, 3 days later, I will give him credit. He had a good outreach for a pitch. He had a good outreach to try, and he tied it to a recent post I did, and then he had a curiosity question that opened up a conversation that then led to a call. Very well executed. But that was just because I'm an eager and generous person to see what sort of is happening. I just don't believe that that's a really effective way to connect with somebody. And this is what I believe about personalization, and then we can move on to some of the later parts of the engagement strategies, Nick. Personalization is not enough. Personalization done well is a good conversation starter. But everything else we've talked about, from understanding your market, having a good profile, commenting, building trust, putting content out there, all of that lays the foundation for a personalized request to go above and beyond. And we've run
Mhm.
experiments on this. We have done the bad profile personalized request, great profile personalized request. And guess what? The great profile personalized request performs so much better in terms of connection acceptance rates and follow on conversations that lead to pipeline. The reason it is because the brain, your prospect's brain, is going to connect the dots between, "Oh, yeah, I saw her comment on my post. That was such a good insight. She had followed up with a connection request a few days later after we had another conversation. Then she had a great observation question that opened up a conversation. Absolutely. Let's have it. Let's do a combo." That's very different than, "Hey, I saw you liked this post. Let's connect." Right? So different. Anyways.
One caveat to or one thing I'll add into this is I also have a lead list in Sales Nav called prospects.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I do is, so I don't lose these people that we've started to have more dynamic discussions, is I throw them in there before we booked a meeting or before we're qualified it for pipeline. And so I keep coming back. So once they hit the rule of 3, that we've had dynamic discussions and maybe we just haven't connected yet, or we have connected but we haven't really got there, that allows me to stay in touch
Mm-hmm.
meaningfully
Mm-hmm.
as they're posting, but I can now be consistent, and it does work. But this now leads into where we're going next. Okay, so now we all have quota. That's why we're here. We have quota. We need to go and pay bills. So now we can't leave everything to a hope and a prayer. Although this works a lot faster than you would expect.
It's
You will
true.
see results in less than 30 days. What I'm about to tell you is how to set up your day.
Okay.
So me and Morgan have been running different schedules every week to see what works. You can get away with prospecting 3 to 4 times a week running this strategy and do well, because Monday is a
Mm-hmm.
good planning day and people are
Mm-hmm.
busy. So in the morning, first thing you do, post your piece of content. You can mix these up. I've seen people do it different ways. The order doesn't matter. Some people argue. I haven't seen a difference in results. So until then,
Until
order
then.
doesn't matter. Post your piece of content. Go comment on those influencers. Then we start working our list.
Mm-hmm.
So we're commenting on those leads that we have, the lead list, going through and we're commenting. And what we want to do is get to at least 5 or 10 per day. This all what we're talking about should be less than a half an hour. And then when
Oh,
you get to
if
your,
that, yeah.
if that, what you want to do is you have tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, however you're scoring your accounts. Highest value is 1, mid is 2, 3 is they might need it, we're not really sure.
Yeah.
What you want to do is build your connection base with the audience that needs you the most, but the ones that are, you got to pick the right people. And so you only are allowed 100 connection requests a week, or LinkedIn will surely put you in jail, because we have tested this a few times and it is a very strict limit. Very
You
strict.
just you just don't want to play with it. All right.
And
It's too
so
risky.
try to segment your accounts. Almost think of it like an aircraft carrier, or like going on a plane. There's different seats. There's first class,
Mm-hmm.
there's business, and then
Mm-hmm.
there's economy. Kind of a harsh way of putting it, but
But
it is what it
yeah.
is. So if
Yep.
you did pick one first class person that you're going to reach out to, your homework has to be done before you're doing this. First class needs to be personalized. You need to know what's in it for the company and what's specifically in it for them. Why do they care? How are you going to make them look like a rock star? That's your personalized invitation. Tier 2, do about three of them, and just personalize it to the company level. What's in it for the company? What do you know about their role specifically that you can step into their shoes and be like, hey, I saw this.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about this? Hey, I saw this. You're probably going through this.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then tier 3, think of them more as, lack of better terms, filler. They're your audience that really need you, but don't necessarily have that buying power, that would get a lot from your content, would be good to have in your community, because they can join you and have those dynamic discussions to learn more about the companies, but you don't necessarily have to have that personalized invitation. This saves brain power.
Yes.
Is it the perfect solution? No, but it works. And
Right.
so if you have time, you can also double this. That was only 10. The reason why I only do 10 is, as I'm commenting, I will want to connect with people.
Mm-hmm.
And when I go over, I go in jail. So
Yeah.
I stick to 10 because I
And
always
also,
end up connecting more people.
for me, I'll say for Nick, the limiting factor is some of the connection and like follow on work. For me, it's the brain space. And I feel like it is a little important to talk about this. Just I have my own sort of energy limits when it comes to all of this. And LinkedIn, like LinkedIn is a tool. It's one thing you're doing. You're also if you're in a prospecting role or you're doing prospecting, you're probably doing more than LinkedIn. You're cold calling, you might be cold emailing, right? So you don't want to make this take up 6 hours of your day. and intentionally so, because there's diminishing returns after a certain point. You can only move so fast, you can only get to so many people, you only have the energy for so many comments
You
or the
beat me to it,
insight,
Morgan.
you can only ask so many questions, right?
So what you
And
do now
yeah,
is you stop. You
exactly.
turn notifications off. You
Yep.
stop. You don't respond to DMs. You don't respond to comments unless you have a spare later in that day that you did not fill with a meeting. And
Yep.
then you can also use the event layer on LinkedIn to go and prospect, but we can get into that in a little bit.
Yep.
You're filling space. And
Hmm.
so now you stop. Now what you do is those accounts that you've already worked for the first 14 days, now you're calling, now you're emailing, now you're doing your other outreach because say LinkedIn, the primary people that you were going to get on LinkedIn aren't responding and you have
Mm-hmm.
quota to hit.
Hmm.
So what is the next best channel?
Right.
And how do you respect them as a person by using that channel? Is it a quick call to go and confirm some information? Is it a
Hmm.
small email sequence to go and prove value and start that conversation? This is what you do with the bulk of your time. And now you have to time block everything. I I find somewhere between a half an hour, and I'm capped for the morning because I can't think of good comments. I'm burnt out. And
Yeah.
so I need to go and take a break. Maybe
Hmm.
I'll go walk the dog or I'll go eat breakfast. Sometimes I'll do
Hmm.
like I break it up on purpose. And then you go. And then you go and do your other work. And then what I do is I have set time blocks every day that I have my meetings.
Hmm.
And I also do a prep time for my meetings too. Something to think about, guys. But if somebody cancels a meeting or I have time that I didn't fill, that to me is prospecting time. I go back onto LinkedIn and I don't necessarily go comment yet. I don't
Hmm.
necessarily go and respond. I'm still doing new, and I'm keep driving that forward. So I'll go and find a keyword that is very relevant to my audience and I'll go and sort by events.
Mm-hmm.
I'll go through that event and I'll register for ones that I like, that I think are interesting, that are highly relevant, that either I can learn or there's the right ICP, the right personas that are in there to learn what I can teach them. So as
So,
soon as you connect,
yep.
you don't need to be connected to message them.
As soon as you attend the event, you don't have to be connected to message them. Honestly, Nick, for those of you who are new here, we've mentioned, at least in some ways, the 10 layers of LinkedIn in previous live shows. This layer, using events to find ICPs and connect with them, or be able to message with them, is one of the layers. So we've talked about a very indirect approach right now, as we could call it, which is slowing down to speed up. We're doing comments, we're engaging, we're building trust, and we're either following up with mutual connection requests and following conversations with observation plus question. This is a very direct approach, but it's also tailored in a way that, as long as you can, and Nick, I know you have a way of thinking through this, but as long as you can find a way to kickstart a conversation, trust me, people do this all the time to me because I register for a lot of events and 90% of them are not that good. They do not have a good intro to start a conversation because this direct strategy is narrowing from your account and lead list into specific people who are active on the platform, who are interested in attending a specific topic, that you can then connect the dots on something useful that maybe kickstarts a conversation. And it's a very direct approach. And it's a good complement to some of the more indirect approaches, depending upon who you need to reach and how you need to prospect.
Yeah. And so you made your investments in the morning.
Hmm.
You did your extra outreach because you had time and you had time to fill. Because we always have that manager that's trying to get us to justify space. Call
Hmm.
it what it is. There's activity metrics, whether they mean anything or not. Anyways,
Ah.
you got to go and got to keep busy. And so now you've got to the end of the day, you've done your meetings, you're doing your wrap up. Now you need to schedule in about a half an hour or an hour because those investments that you made in the morning are working. Some of them pay off more than others. Pareto's law. So
Mhm.
what you do is you go back and you start with the comments and you respond to everything.
Mhm.
And you got to think of, don't go for the kill. It's the rule of three. Build that relationship, drive that conversation forward. Think of asking a question, make a thoughtful statement, give them a resource, send them something, keep driving that forward. And then people that you've connected with, respond to their direct messages at the end of the day. How are we driving this conversation forward? What are we specifically doing? Is it an observation and a question like we said before? Are you sending them a piece of content? Hey, last time we talked, you were really focusing on prospecting. I just saw this wicked prospecting podcast by Nick and Morgan. I wanted to send it to you. Or Blissful Prospecting, or 30 Minutes to President's Club. All incredible.
Oh yeah.
And you send them these resources because you're there to help,
Hmm.
because you haven't made that business case yet. So you're driving it forward, driving it forward.
I just saw Jamie's comment. Thank you. I'm glad you like this very plain black mug. Nothing special. Anyways, sorry, Nick.
Gotta get yourself a B2B Power Hour one
I
eventually.
know we should get some swag.
Yeah,
We really need it.
we do.
I,
You got to be really purposeful in how you're working this every day, and
hmm.
then fine tuning it, because what happens is when you start scoring all of this, it changes the game. So
Hmm.
you've scored your leads. What score of leads, what persona are you booking the most meetings with?
Hmm.
Which of those people end up closing? So you got to fine tune. Okay, where are they showing up? Where are they the easiest to route into? Is it on the phone? Is it in an email? Where is it? And so this is where we have to start doing this experiment. I can't tell you what works for your audience perfectly, because every audience is different, but the
Hmm.
testing is always the same. I
Hmm.
find that LinkedIn first for the 14 days works really well, because I can usually route in,
Hmm.
or I can get a lot of really good information, observations that I can take to the phone, that I can take to an email, that adds a lot of value, that shows that not only I know my shit, but I spent time validating them. I think we're
Yep.
a good fit to work together before we ever started to work together. You're
Right.
doing that hard decision, right?
Hmm.
And then you're letting all of these work. You don't want to spend too much time on LinkedIn. It doesn't work. That's where you go wrong. Sales Navigator is a really good way just to focus on work.
Hmm.
Be careful. There are two different. God, have you had this before, Morgan? There's two different
Yes,
inboxes.
there are.
If you use Sales Nav to go and send your personalized invitations, they go to your Sales Nav inbox. Incredible pain in the ass, but that's
Yep.
how Microsoft decided to do it without having,
I,
like
yep.
a better inbox built in. But here we
I don't know what
are.
to tell you.
If you do it in LinkedIn, it shows up
Hmm.
in your LinkedIn inbox.
Yeah.
And I you kind of get stuck using whatever inbox. If you
Yep.
get rid of Sales Nav, you lose those conversations.
Yeah. You only have
Just
one.
just
I
so you know.
just to take a step back here for a second, because so one thing that we hear a lot from companies that we work with and talk to is, well, this just sounds like a lot of work, and it sounds like it's a lot slower than our existing process. And in the back of my head, reviewing their sales process, I'm like, you have an 18 email outreach cadence that lasts for 60 days. Do you think that this is really slower and less effective? But anyways, that's the sarcastic reply. The honest reply is, yeah, it's different. It's a different way, as Nick's laid out, of working your day. It's a different way of using a social network. But at the end of the day, it's still a social network. People come here to engage and to learn. They don't come here to get sold. Period. They do not. No, nobody walks in to LinkedIn in the morning
What am
and
I gonna buy
says,
today?
I can't wait to get pitched. Like, nobody says that. They come there. You know why people are logging on to LinkedIn right now? Because they're scrolling through and seeing, is there anybody in my network that's impacted by Ukraine? Is there anybody in my network that I can help? Is there some story that's going to be interesting? Is there a news article I haven't seen? That's why people log into LinkedIn. So when you insert yourself in that conversation in their inbox saying, hey, do you want to have a call to talk about my product that can help you save money? No, no, nobody does. Okay. And that's where slowing down.
Sorry, I'm running out of time to be on
Yeah,
LinkedIn today. I didn't
yeah.
schedule for this.
I'm sorry, right? And this is because this is a social network, and so all of it comes back to building trust on the front end. And as you think about what Nick just brought up, and I guess the fancy word for this is multi-threading, new
Hmm.
word for me, but being able to layer on cold email, cold call, and other outreach sequences on top of your social selling approach. I From our experience, do your first 14 days on LinkedIn, because when you reach out, when you comment with them, when you engage with them, when you have a conversation with them, and then you follow up with an email, they know your name. They
Hmm.
know how to connect those dots. And that email is no longer really cold. It's not necessarily hot, but they also know who you are, right? They know how to connect the dots for your profile. And it's so
Hmm.
crucial. And this is it's shifting around the way you're doing prospecting. It is a little more manual and it's a little more time intensive. But if you do the front end work that we talked, I mean, time intensive is
I
maybe.
would say the marketer saying something's time intensive. I don't know,
I,
buddy. You ever dial for
rude.
dollars before? That's pretty freaking
Yes,
time
yes,
consuming.
yes. I have. I've also stood outside of Walmart's asking for donations.
Oh,
That's a rough one.
so you are, you
So-
see, we can officially welcome Morgan in because I know
oh
he's been
wow.
selling
Okay.
with us, but like he's done the crap work that nobody wants to do. We never talked
I've
about that
definitely done
before.
some dirty work, man, over the years.
Ah,
Oof. Now, Joseph just threw in an interesting comment. Oh, and actually, I believe it's Eileen who's the LinkedIn user. I hope all of your employees are safe and are going to be safe, and their families as well. Um, and please find resources in your area or in your country that you can either donate to or support, because it is a humanitarian crisis and will only increasingly be so. Anyways, Joseph had commented it doesn't work for them because they put traditional sales KPIs on top of this strategy and then measure that. Of course, it doesn't work then.
ugh.
Love the winky face in that comment because it's so true.
Hey Joseph, we want to change everything. We want to keep all the same KPIs with a
Yep.
new strategy. We're going to track it entirely the same, but we're going to go digital.
We're
So
gonna
we're going to cold call digital. We're going to email even more digital. And we're going to LinkedIn hard.
ah,
And
but we
I
still are
guys,
gonna
just so you know, I
do.
want at least like 500 activities a day just so I know that you're justifying the office space that I gave you.
Oh man, it's so crazy. But it's true that this, while we don't have the time to get into this fully today before we close out, this is a sales management conversation in part because the way social selling works and the way that activity works and the way results work is very different because of the engagement strategy we've outlined today. The, I don't know, time to opportunity, time to demo. You okay there, bud?
Good.
The time to get them on a call is going to look really different, especially if you're using an indirect. But what we've seen in the companies we've worked with and with some of the companies we've talked to is that even though the time to your first meeting is different or probably longer than from your like an initial outreach, the time in pipeline is a lot shorter because
Half.
it's at
40 to
you
60% seems to be the average
it's
because you've
insane.
the trust, and not only do you start with trust and credibility,
Mhm.
but guess what else you don't normally get?
Tell
A
it to me.
pricing conversation.
Pricing
Because
conversation.
when you start with value and you understand the value, it's less likely that the discount conversation comes up right away. And if it
Right.
does, you can stand your ground and we'll have supporters.
Yep. 100%.
Maybe that's something we talk about another, but
Indeed.
yeah, that was one of, we haven't really talked about that, but nobody's really been arguing on price ever since we've posted more
No.
content.
No, and that's because as long as your team or yourself are demonstrating value on a network, people get that like it's a good idea to work with you and talk with you or to work with your company. And uh, uh,
Amen.
managing for that is uh, so crucial, and it just changes the way that you're measuring success. And also, I saw David's comment: execs should manage for success, not manage to fire. Preach,
Yep.
brother.
Yeah, if you're
Man,
only looking at the lagging indicators and saying, "Hey, you didn't hit pipe or you didn't go and get your quota." Thank you, Mr. Manager.
Yeah.
Why isn't that we didn't have this conversation when my pipeline was low and you didn't come in to coach me? Because,
Yeah.
I can go somewhere else where there's a manager that can support me.
Right.
I'm a little,
Anyways, did you want to wrap up any last thoughts on engagement strategy and prospecting since we are close to time today, Nick?
somebody else had said it in the comments, but less is more.
Mm-hmm.
Start really simple. Write this all out. Write a list, talk to us. We can go and help you. Watch this video over and over. Look at b2bpowerhour.com. It's there, but do less. Pick one, two, maybe three things, absolutely max. And each week add in another layer. It's habit stacking. You got to build this into your habit, and it's hard because it's easy for the first couple days, like going to the gym, and then you get sore, or something comes up that's in the way, and well, this isn't a priority, then it never happens. So
Yeah.
you have to make it a priority by doing little bits. So are you
Yep.
going to start with just commenting? You don't need to post, just start with commenting. Who are you commenting on? Start with influencers. Well, next bit, then build your account lead list. Start counting on, or start commenting on those key leads. Simple, simple, simple. And of course, guys, you have to suffer in silence if you need help. You're struggling or you're frustrated, you don't feel like you have anyone to talk to. Our DMs are always open. Comment, join us on our Monday power hours where we go through these questions in more detail. So it's just your guys' conversation. You come with your questions, we come with
Mm-hmm.
answers.
So we host that in a Zoom room, just FYI. And if you want an invite to that, please just DM us. We'd be happy to have you. And a hearty thank you to everyone who came today and who is here. We don't do this for ourselves. We do this because you show up. And we'd love to hear what else you want us to talk about and other topics that we should address, because thank you so much for your time this morning, and hope it was super valuable, and that you took away at least a few golden nuggets from today's conversation. So thank you, and happy Friday, a hearty happy Friday to everyone.
Happy Friday, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. Look forward to seeing you guys all soon. And if you need help, see you in the DMs.
Sounds good. Bye.
Bye.